One big, beautiful bill, but is it? Let's get into it. This is going to be an interesting episode. I thank all of y'all for watching The Forgotten Oath. It is a project I've been working on for a while and just absolutely thrilled to death about having it out there. For all of you who are new, this is a show about how the government is not upholding their deals with the military. So just know that it's not a political show as far as Democrats and Republicans. I'm politically homeless. I can care less. But I do care about how our brothers and sisters are taken care of. So let's get into this big, beautiful bill. All right. It's got a lot of stuff in it that I kind of agree with, and there's a lot of stuff in here I don't. So how does this bill affect the soldiers, the veterans? Um, it's a shame that we even have to talk about this, but Title One is goes over SNAP, right? Supplement Nutritional Assistance Program, right? And unfortunately, we all know that there is a lot of homeless veterans. There's active duty veterans that are still on food stamps and subsidized assistance, and it's a shame. It really is. It's a shame that our active duty soldiers aren't paid enough to not qualify for food stamps. But that's been an ongoing problem. It's not a new problem. It's nothing that we're not already aware of, right? However, this bill takes it a different way. So it doesn't increase the veterans' pay. Therefore, it's not going to get them out of the range of qualifying, but it could very well drop it low enough that they don't qualify anymore. And that would be worse than them being on it. Just being honest. Uh, I personally was on WIC with my family. I know several soldiers that were on food stamps, and it wasn't because they weren't managing their money. It was because of the lack of money. And so that does worry me. On to Title Two. Title Two, the Armed Services. So this is interesting, right? And it's got a section in here that we're going to really dig deep into. And I try to keep these 30 minutes at the max, but let's get into it. Title Two, Armed Service. Defense quality of life and procurement. Funding enhancements for military living conditions, shipbuilding programs, and integrated air and missile defenses, right? So what they're talking about in here is we're going to increase drones. We're going to increase our missile defenses. The funding enhancements for military living conditions. That's the one I really want to get into. So, what that is talking about is improving our barracks system. I don't know if it's still that way, but when I was in the housing on base was controlled by a private company. It wasn't controlled by the government. Therefore, I don't believe this has anything to do with helping out the married soldiers in the quality of those houses. However, it does talk specifically, and it states in there specifically that it is to help with barracks maintenance. I want to say it was like $1.8 billion is what's going to be set aside strictly just for that. But the interesting part comes right now. So the other part of this is the Veterans Housing Fund. a proposed tax on large corporate stock buybacks to create a fund for veterans housing, rapid rehousing, and mental health services. That sounds great. It sounds like that's exactly what we need. Who's going to run it? Homelessness is skyrocketing. What we say is 22 a day. Reality is it's way higher than that. There's it's an impossible system. Um, some veterans are lucky enough to get help, and the majority are not. So who is going to take this new finance and this new project on, right? The VA hasn't done much. I mean, that's who's currently working this. And I would argue that Tunnel for Towers is probably going to be way more advanced in the help that they're giving their veterans than what the VA is. But who's going to take care of this? So this program is going to be a joint program between the VA and HUD. I don't know about you, but neither one of them really have great records in the past. And I think we all can agree the VA is really similar to Kamala. They're there. She was there. They're not doing nothing. It's just a show. So I do believe that that part of that idea it needs to be relooked at. There has to be an organization out there that, I mean, there's tons of nonprofits out there that would probably be better and more eager to solve this problem. It would already be solved with all these nonprofits out there if the funding was there. If we took that estimated to generate 12 to 18 billion per year, and we gave it to larger nonprofits that was for helping out homelessness, mental health services, and so forth, I promise you it would get taken care of. It would get beat. The red tape would go away. And the fact is that people would actually start getting the help. But you would have to isolate it to that. And I don't see that ever happening. The VA is going to always be a part of it. And I just don't see, there's just too much chance that this budget goes to other stuff. And the reason it worries me is because not so much, I mean, we could build homes. That's not really the issue. We call it homelessness, but that really is not the issue. It's all the little stuff that runs underneath it. The addictions, the mental health issues, the PTSD, the fact that they don't have any records anymore. They've been homeless for so long that they no longer have birth certificates, IDs, or anything. And if you've ever tried to help somebody who was homeless get an ID, you are in for a treat. Let me tell you, because that system is not there to help you. And so I think at the end of the day, we need to relook at that part of that system. That's a lot of money that it's going to generate. And if it doesn't fix a lot of the problems, and if it goes into the wrong hands, where it becomes about quantity, not quality, that money was wasted. And we didn't do anything. And I would hate to see that. Because I am glad that part of it's in the bill. Even though there's problems, it's a start. and I'll take that. Um, you know, I'm not going to be the guy that argues and says all government's bad and everything else. I never will be. I love this country. I love our veterans. I served, um, and I'm very passionate about it. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that that job costs families lives, and to see them get put aside, to see them still being homeless after years. If you looked at the homeless rates, it would shock you. I mean, it would not shock you of where they're at. California, Florida, Texas, those areas are the higher areas, but they're the warmer climates. The weather's not near as extremes. And if I was homeless, that's probably where I would want to be as well. However, at the end of the day, those areas aren't receiving the help they need to handle it. And some of those areas just don't care. It's swept under. They don't care why you're homeless. You're just homeless. And at the end of the day, we're here fighting over nonsense stuff in our lawmaking Congress and Senate. I mean, lots of stuff that just care less about. And I think it's unfortunate because I'd like to say that I'm in that middle range where I believe in a little bit of Democrat stuff and a little bit of Republican stuff, and 100% for anything that benefits our veterans. So let's talk about the pushback. These sounds like there's great things, right? Well, the big fight, and I'm kind of with this as well, is it does take away and put a lot of restrictions on some of the SNAP programs and subsidization that's out there. And with that being said, it's frustrating because I agree with some of the stuff. Like able-bodied people have to work. If you're going to get benefits, you have to have a job. And I agree with that. I do. The problem is you're going to have soldiers, because of the strict requirements and the cutbacks, that no longer qualify for it. But the true problem is they shouldn't qualify for it to begin with. Somebody that is giving their life up. And that's exactly what happens when you raise your right hand. You have put your life on hold to serve this country. And I think it's one of the greatest honors out there. However, that means that those people should be treated and helped when they're needed. You walk into a China store and you break a plate. Well, you bought it. But where is that when it comes to the soldiers? When you break that soldier, the programs aren't out there to catch everybody. They're out there to catch some. And I think that is where my disagreements are with it as well. All right. However, before we end this, I'm going to add in here, right? If you would like to see who was for it and who was against it, I've got that right here. So let's throw it up there. And the current names that are running across the bottom of the screen for those who are listening audio-wise, the bottom of my screen, you'll have to go to YouTube and look at the video, has a list of all the congressmen that voted for it. In a moment, when it ends, I'll add the people that did not, right? But while we're doing that, let's get into a few other things, right? How come the bill doesn't have anything about the expansion for the PACT Act? I personally deal with sinus issues. I know a lot of other veterans that deal with sinus issues, and waking up in the morning sucks. You take medication to try to breathe, and it all comes from these burn pits. Every bit of it is with the burn pits. And I get it. We had to do something with it. But where is the research on the problems this is going to cause down the road? We're already seeing health issues, life health issues. We then turned around and gave a larger role to the VA without actually revamping the VA. And I don't get that either. Why would you ever give them a larger role? They were in the position to try to fix this stuff, and they didn't fix it. So we're going to throw more money at it and put them with another program that ain't horrible, but it could be better as well. And it just doesn't make no sense to me. It's crazy. So that was the ones who approved it, right? So let's go with who were the naysayers. Well, that list don't take long. It was summed up with every single Democrat. But again, as we discussed, I don't think they're 100% wrong. And I get it. There's agendas that hides all this stuff, and they use this stuff as smoke screens, but that's never going to change. But you have to look and read this stuff and ask yourself, take away the politics and read this stuff and say, what do I think? And I'm going to leave it right there with that. I think it's important that you guys educate yourself. You think for yourself. And anytime you want to talk with me, I'll be glad. I am one of those guys that I have no issue with agreeing to disagree, and no issue with having a beer with you afterwards, even though we still disagree. I think it's time that we make the change. Thanks for watching. This is The Forgotten Oath. I'm excited. Y'all take care. Be safe.